He's director of Woodside Fund for Education. Stephen previously served as the County Counsel for Marin, Sonoma, and Santa Clara counties, where he has advised legal matters related to housing, land use, public finance, environmental protection, and a longtime member of the Sausalito Yacht Club. Please help me welcome Stephen.
Thank you, Marge, and thank you all for being here. We are very excited to be here to share. Several of us will be speaking to you. We've got some things for you to see on the screen. We want to talk about why we're excited to be part of Call to See, as many of you have been over the years. I look around the room, I've seen people who have been supporters in one way or another, donating their time, donating resources, coming out sailing with us, etc. And David Schwartz, one of the originals in Call to See, welcome to come back. This stage in our 40th year. I don't go back that far, but Alan does. And you'll be hearing from Alan in just a moment. But I wanted to start off by just talking about the mission of Call to See that's been consistent for 40 years. And that mission is to bring people out on the water on traditionally rigged ships to learn about maritime history, to learn about the ocean, to learn about themselves, to learn how to work as a team. And anyone who's been on a ship and felt that moment of joy and discovery by the experience knows what I'm talking about. And my guess is everyone in this room is, one way or another, had that experience at one point in his or her life. Pinky, you could probably tell stories all night long about how you were blessed by the experience of sailing around the world. And there are other people in this room who've had far more adventuresome experiences than myself. I'm probably the least qualified sailor here, and I just wanted to say the reason I got involved with Call to Sea is because Lucinda, who's my wife, just sitting down, we had joined this yacht club. Hi, Lucinda. We joined this club in 2013, and shortly thereafter, and I had ambitions to participate much more in sailing activities here at the club. And she said, you might be interested in what's going on in this tent. And it was the blessing of the keel in 2013. And I showed up and I thought, they're never going to be able to do this, but we might as well try. And I was hooked, as many of you were hooked by the whole idea that here in Sausalito, a ship could be built for the mission, for the purpose of introducing all of us to the sea and to maritime history. So without further ado, our founder, Alan, is up here to share a few things with you. Alan's also a member of this club, as you well know. And Alan, here we go, the beginning.
All right, thank you, Stephen. And it's great to be here. And there's so many people I know and who have supported us and have been part of what we've done. And so thank you all for that. I'm going to give just a little rundown on a few things and how we got started. This is a picture called Stone Witch. It was built back in the 70s, and it was the boat that we first started to have programs on. And it was very important for us to do that. In fact, I'll read on, if I can read over this. Well, I'll just wing it. Stone Ridge was built by volunteers and supporters in El Viso. Anybody know where El Viso is? Yes, sir. All right, very end. And the south of the bay. With help from our friends and family, it took 7 years to build Stone Ridge. The same amount of time it took us to build Matthew Turner. At first we started, Stonewich set sail for Fisherman's Wharf in 1977. Stonewich, at the first, it's in 1970, at the first we started as a U.S. Coast Guard registered fishing vessel. But we found we could not have more fun, we could have more fun, and make more revenue operating as a charter vessel. However, we moved to Pier 23 as the winter weather came on, and next to a Greenpeace vessel which was not operational. And so we began operating as a Greenpeace protest vessel. It was fun and helpful to bring attention to protecting the ocean environment, overfishing, and whales being close to extinction. Sorry for reading all this, but that's the best I can do. So, while in San Francisco, we also got to know a cop on his rounds, a police officer, on the waterfront. And he asked if we could take some adjudicated youth from a low security facility that they were in, sailing for 5 days and 4 nights. And I thought about it. I said, sure, let's try it. The outcome was amazing. At first, they were out of their world and humble, not knowing what would happen. We learned yelling at them would not help and was not good. And so we would always be polite and let them know what we expected and show them, and to bring them to bring their interest to sailing the ship and experiencing the sea. It worked as we challenged them how to sail the boat back to San Francisco, 50 miles from Point Reyes. And they did. After that experience, he decided to become a nonprofit in 1984, 41 years ago now, because it would offer more opportunities for positive, life-changing experiences. Stonewich went on to sail over 50,000 miles, ocean voyaging throughout the Pacific and locally, with many stories to tell. In 1985, all was well until we struck an uncharted rock 4 feet below the water. The wind was blowing hard and the waves were all white until we hit the rock. We rode up 3 times on the rock and banged on it and jumped over it finally, the rock, and kept on sailing. I asked one of the crew members to go below and see what's happening. He came back saying there's water coming in and the floorboards are floating. And I said to everyone, okay, go below, get your money, your passports, and tickets home. We got no time to fool around. So yeah, they did. That night in Mexico, we were all together talking about going home after a few beers, etc. Someone else asked, what? I can add it if I have to. Okay. Okay, let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, so save the world. So we went. Yeah, I got it now. Save the Stonewich. That's what everybody was saying at this party we had, and they're all little drunk. Oh, I need attention. So everybody having a kind of, let's go. We're getting ready to go back home. When somebody says, well, let's raise the Stonewich. And we're going, oh, I don't know about that. And I said, well, we did know. I did think that you can get bags, 10-ton lift bags, and they weren't that expensive. And we started talking about it. And I said, well, the first thing we got to do is find a boat. The boat went down in 140 feet of water. And we had to find a boat to see what kind of damage was there. And what we did, finally find it, took us 7 days, dragging something around. And the good news was it was in sand, so when it hit, it wasn't in rocks. And so there was a fisherman who was very fascinated with what we were doing over there. He was he was a diver. And so he wanted to know what was happening when police called him, because he wanted to see the boat. There was a lot of talk around town about what happened, if you can imagine. And so we got him in, and he went down there, and he came back after quite a little bit of time, and they just had scubas, is what they had. You know, they had pushing air down they didn't carry tanks or anything like that. So he was down there for a while and came back, and his eyes are big, and he said, he was just so, I don't know, it really touched him in one way, and he said he wanted to help bring it back up when we were ready. And he did, as a volunteer, and he was very, very committed to it, and it was quite an undertaking. So, but what I will say is that it's a long story, and what happened, and when we brought it up, it's a fascinating story. However, you will have to wait till you get the full story in a book coming up soon. Sorry for who was Matthew Turner? He was a founding member of San Francisco Yacht Club, which started here in Sausalito. So that's who Matthew Turner was, so he's part of us. And he built 238 wooden vessels in a 36-year period in the Bay Area. He was known for building the fastest vessels on the west and east coast. He came from the Great Lakes, where his family cut trees and built ships for the Great Lakes. Captain Turner came to California for gold and was successful. But as gold was harder to find, he ended up building a sailing vessel and sent them to Alaska to fish. They were able to fill their ships in just a few days. So Matthew Turner expanded his shipyard in Benicia, which was able to build 10 ships per month. Matthew Turner, think about that, building 10 ships a month. He was able to do that. Matthew Turner was also known for his integrity in business and his kindness to all. So we were very happy to honor somebody like that, who he was, and the influence he had. So we're honored to use his name. Cots built the first wooden brigantine in the Bay Area called the Sea, so the first wooden built brigantine in the Bay Area in almost a century. Matthew Turner is also the first sailing ship to be classified as a green ship. Starting with all the wood being FSC certified from protected forests along the California coast. Close here, okay. From protected logging, it was also, yeah, let me get that. Let's see, anyways, Chris Kelly, he was in charge of, he was a NAR sailor, we were at that time also, and he called me up one day and he said, Alan, he looked over a huge forest up north that was under protection for forever. They did have to cut some wood every so often. And so he said, hey, Alan, do you need any wood? And I said, yeah, we need wood. He said, well, I got wood. And tell me what you need, and we'll give it to you. And so that was a big plus. We got, I don't know how many thousand foot of it, but anyways, we got a lot of it delivered and cut into big planks. We didn't have it cut into pieces. They were just big 3-inch planks with the whole side, because you have to, everything is different on a boat. You don't just go up to the store and buy something that fits. Everything has to be cut and fitted to the boat. So that worked out very well for us. Let's see. So we were also, that was part of it, but we also looked, we wanted to be the greenest ship built. That was a big issue for us. We thought about it. If we're going to build a ship, let's build a ship and not, and make sure that we don't, because we started out with forest certified lumber. We wanted to make sure we continue to do that. So we looked to paints and glues, fasteners, etc. And most importantly, we looked at our propulsion system. We were the first to power 2 electric motors from 2 large lithium batteries. The electric motors were 300 horsepower or 250 horsepower each. And they got their energy from lithium battery banks. And we had 2 kilowatt generators that could charge these batteries. And once sailing, each electronic motor became a generator, okay? Because the propellers started to turn, 2 propellers do everything on the boat. And as we started to turn at 8 knots, we were producing 8 kilowatts. So if you got 2 boats, that's 16 kilowatts. So we had huge amounts of electricity. However, we also have a huge need for electricity on the boat. Everything we do, cooking and everything we do needs it. So it has worked out. It's working out now. It took a bit to get things together. There were little issues with this and that, but we finally, at this point, have them all resolved. And last time, the guys from the batteries came to get a 5-year assessment of it and said they look like they'll be good for 5 years. So that's good. So that's going to be like 20, 15 years that we'll have use out of it. Seeing the Matthew take shape with keel, frames, planking, decking, and all that's needed below deck. Rigging. It took 7 years from laying the keel. So now some of you might have been here for laying the keel. I think you mentioned it, or at other times. How many of here saw the ship under construction? All right. How many sailed aboard? All right. That's great. How many volunteered in the building turf? All right. Great. Our success so far has been building a ship, building community. That cares about our success, a community that cares about our success well into the future and for the next 100 years. Please join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you again, and thanks for inspiring so many of us to get involved and stay involved. What we're now going to do is show you about a 4-minute video that was prepared last fall by a young member of this club, who is Omar Alami, who some of you know is an excellent sailor. He's a TAM High School student. He's also a videographer, and I just want to give him if you happen to see him around the club sailing, compliment him on this film you're about to see.
Since before Sir Francis Drake sailed the coast of the freshly discovered New World until the present day, the story of the San Francisco Bay Area is a story of the sea. The indigenous people who lived around the bay and on the coast were accomplished navigators, fishers, and hunters of marine animals. Today, much of the world's trade goods still travel on ships fantastically larger than those imagined by our ancestors, but still relying on the tides, the winds, and the skill of their sailors to complete their voyages. For 40 years, Call Out the Sea has been teaching youngsters and students of all ages about the sea and its critical importance to our well-being. Sailing 2 magnificent vessels, the schooner Seaward and the volunteer-built brigantine Matthew Turner, Call of the Sea has become a leader in marine, experiential, environmental education. These vessels are not just icons of maritime heritage, they are central to our mission, to immerse students in the wonders of the ocean and ignite their passion for science and the environment.
Only so many times you can tell a kid, like, in a diagram or on a slideshow or on a projector in a textbook, like, oh, this is this, like, this is categorized as a mammal, this is a zooplankton, this is phytoplankton, and then getting them out here and being like, that's a harbor seal, like, right there, like, that's a sea lion right there.
All the crew that we had working, I mean, they're all kind of committed to this whole educational aspect of this, and in fact, that's one of the reasons this organization was set up, was to bring the environment into people's lives, and particularly the marine environment, which is obviously crucial to the survival of the whole planet.
And the students are responding. Today, we're serving more young people than ever before. On board Matthew Turner and Seaward, learning blends the excitement of sailing with real-world science experiments, fostering a profound connection with the natural world.
Okay, so California gray whales spend their summers up in Alaska.
Our programs introduce students to STEM concepts, sailing skills, marine biology, and environmental science. And by the way, they also instill a deep and lasting sense of responsibility for our planet. We're nurturing the environmental leaders of tomorrow, today. Call of the Sea will provide scholarships to 2,000 students this year from San Rafael's Canal District, Marin City, Oakland, and other communities in need.
Call of the Sea is doing a lot of great things in supporting students going to this camp. There are more ways that these students could be supported. One is transportation, just getting the students to Sausalito in the morning and getting them back home in the afternoon can sometimes be a challenge. One of my roles has been setting up carpools with parents, and expanding a bus program would be very helpful in developing this program.
So many of the young people don't ever get a chance to go into place. 95% of them never even get out in the waters around here. So they don't have any connection. And so what we're trying to do is give them a connection, and they do. And it is important because they come back and all of a sudden they look out at the water and it's something they know about.
We're helping students understand how the environment works and how we all have a part to play in the welfare of the planet.
This summer, there are about 12 students from Elm who have enrolled in Call of the Sea camp on full scholarships, and that's made a huge difference. These are students who would otherwise not be able to attend a camp like this and benefit from all of the education and all the friendships and the things that they're learning, all the confidence they're growing.
Thanks to your generous support, Call of the Sea has been able to provide experiential education to students for 40 years.
And with your continued support, we will be inspiring the next generation to love and protect our beautiful bay and oceans for many, many more.
So in addition, is this on?
Oh, you should turn it back.
In addition to Omar Alami, another member of this club you may recognize as the narrator. That's Elizabeth Hunt, and she's going to say a few words.
Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth, you can call me Lizzie. I have been really happy to join Call of the Sea this year as Director of Advancement since last summer, and it has been such an exciting year because it's been the strongest year yet for the organization. It's really wonderful to hear Alan share about the vision and the vision becoming reality because Call of the Sea has been able to serve at a time when the demand for this education has never been higher. Last year, the Matthew Turner and the Seaward each went out 240 times and served 5,000 students in addition to 2,000 community members of all ages. And 100% of the scholarships that we gave, you saw 2,000 scholarships went out. That's 54% of the schools that we serve. All of the scholarships were given to those who had economic need. These are 77% non-white students. Many of them are first-generation immigrant families and who speak English as a second language at home. And just the smiles on their faces after they come back from a sail is really, really remarkable. And one of the other things that's really wonderful that happened this year is that Call of the Sea is serving students from all 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay. So we're really excited about that and the future there. We doubled the amount of scholarships that we gave over the previous year. So that's really wonderful, and it's thanks to our community. It's thanks to all of the supporters that have been there for Call of the Sea from the beginning when it was just a vision. And now we're really excited to talk about the maritime legacy that has to continue for sustaining Call of the Sea into the future. Teachers report that our science-based sailing programs spark engagement in science, technology, engineering, art, math, and there is nothing else that compares to an experience on the water, especially in this really remarkable tall ship. We had that exact quote from a Bahia Vista teacher, and she said this could never be duplicated in the classroom. and that many of the students said, this was the best field trip they had ever been on. So we truly believe experience is the greatest teacher, and we want to make that possible for many more students. And our volunteers, as you know, are core to what we do. One of them, Mike Wing, won the Volunteer of the Year Award, the Marin Volunteer of the Award from the Center for Volunteer Nonprofit Leadership. He's a PhD, a science classroom teacher at Archie Williams High School, and there's a program at that school where students really focus on environmental science. It's called the Sea Discovery Academy, and they commit to 2 years of environmental science, including AP environmental science, either chemistry, economics, government, and an internship. But the only time they ever get on the water is on the Matthew Turner. And so he just talked about how they could never get that kind of education if they weren't doing that with Call to Sea. So he advocates for it actively, regularly. So we're expanding our capacity to serve, bringing the vision to reality. We've brought on new community partners. Modern Sailing is a partner, Golden Gate Markets. New this year, we joined 1% for the Planet, which is a wonderful way that businesses can give back to the community by getting 1% of their budget to environmental partners like Call to Sea. Bank of Marin became a partner, the Redwood Trust, and we have wonderful support from the William Randolph Hearst Foundation, but of course we're looking for more support going forward. And we really appreciate any ideas and introductions toward that end. Long-time challenges we've always had remain, right? Costs have been going up, transportation and funding are barriers for many schools, for Title I schools and for the other schools as well. More schools would like scholarships than we can currently provide. We currently provide scholarships for those who are Title I schools. There are those that are just not quite Title I that would absolutely be able to come if we could offer them. Fleet maintenance and operational costs are extremely high for a tall wooden ship, as anyone can imagine. And there's new challenges, of course. In 2025, there is economic uncertainty for all of our supporters, which is a risk for us. And so our needs are really big right now. And so we begin 2025 with great demand and a shoestring budget, and we could not continue to support these students and to reach our vision without our community. We need your help to build a maritime legacy. And so we built the ship. The demand is here. The programs are exciting, and we get these wonderful thank you notes from students from across the bay for the crew, with beautiful pictures of the Matthew Turner and the whales that they see and the other sea life. But we must rise to meet the demands together. And so I'm so excited to introduce Carla Thorson, our executive director, who is here to talk about our vision for 2025 and beyond. She joins us after a storied history with the World Affairs Council and Commonwealth Club, leading programs there, and is bringing wonderful things to Call of the Sea today.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to be part of Call of the Sea. I started in October, right as the sailing season was coming to an end. So I have been out on Matthew Turner one time under sail. So I'm really looking forward to the fact that we're starting to sail again in a couple of weeks. And I've been out on Seaward a couple of times as well, before the sailing season ended. And as we start 2025, I am really excited about all the things that are possible. You've heard a lot about the history leading up to this point, the 40 years that it's taken to get to this point, and Lizzie very nicely talked about all of the things we achieved in 2024. One of the things that she didn't talk about, which she is largely responsible for, is our impact report. So we have a few copies here if anyone would like to check it out. But we are really proud of all the things that Call of the Sea has been able to achieve. So in 2025, I'm looking ahead and I'm thinking about all of the things that we can do. So let's go sailing. Let's get the boats out on the water more. I'd like to expand the opportunities for students. We served 2,000 students on scholarship last year. We want to bring that to 2,500 in 2025. It's really important for us to expand our partnerships and reach beyond Marin and Sausalito and bring more kids from the 9 counties of the Bay Area out on our ships. And so that's another key objective for us, is expanding those partnerships. The other thing that I want to focus on is expanding our education program and thinking more about the role that Call of the Sea plays in maritime education. We have crew every year who work on board Matthew Turner and Seaward, and they are young people who are building their careers and thinking about their futures. And Call of the Sea is one of the few places where you can learn how to work on a traditional wooden sailing vessel, but you can learn about opportunities in the maritime field. And we want to connect with the modern companies and shipping companies and be able to help train young people who are looking for really valuable careers. And Call of the Sea has the ability to do this. So that's one of the things I want to work on, is building a much more robust program in maritime education for our crew. It's also an opportunity for young people to even think about the possibility of having a career on the water. And it's a really important part of our mission. The other thing I want to work on is just getting the boats out more. We're planning multi-day voyages, and Alan has talked about this a lot, about the value of, it's great to get out for a three-hour afternoon tour of the bay, but if you can actually get on board the Matthew Turner and go on an overnight voyage to Point Reyes or in the Gulf of the Farallones, it can really truly be life-changing. So that's one of our objectives this year, is to actually get the boat off the dock and outside the bay and be able to offer that opportunity to people of all ages. So that's one of the things that's on our calendar. It's really important for leadership development, for skills development. So, we have an aloft program that helps people learn about how to work on a tall ship and climb the rigging and manage the sails, and we want to work on making these multi-day voyages more available for students of all ages. So that's also part of the mission. And I think the last piece of this is really the crux of why I joined Call of the Sea. My focus is on sustainability. And, we built the ship, and now we need to figure out a way to ensure that Matthew Turner and Seaward and the program will be here 40 years from now. And so I'm really looking at how we as an organization manage this. And it's about being able to take care of the ships. It's also being able to develop the programs and make Call of the Sea a valuable program for the entire San Francisco Bay. So there are a couple of things that we're working on to launch this year. One of them, we're looking at an endowment campaign to try and create a fund that will actually be able to support the ships for the maintenance that they need. And we're also planning to develop a leadership circle. I believe it's called the Commodore Circle. So these are things that I'm working on behind the scenes as we get ready to start the sailing season. And I just want to encourage you all to think about ways that you, as our community, can stay involved with Call of the Sea. Many of you helped with the building of the ship, and so I want to invite you to go sailing. This is one of the ways that you can be supportive for the organization. Just get out on the boat. There are opportunities to go sailing. And we're going to start our program this year with something that we've done for several years now. We'll have an event, a Tall Ship Celebration, that's taking place at the end of April. It's on April 26th. So I just want you to make sure you put it on your calendars, and we'll come down to see us and see the ships, and also invite people to come on the 26th. And I think, if I'm allowed to say it, that it might also be somebody's birthday. So it's going to be a special celebration for us. So with that, go sailing more in 2025. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Carla. I think we're in good hands going forward. The birthday that was whispered a moment ago, Alan, how old will you be?
Oh, I'll be
85. Congratulations. Anyway, as Carla mentioned, the best thing actually that we can all do is spread the word. Talk to your friends. We're part of a sailing community right here in this club. I just saw some of the youth sailors coming sailing back in. We have a close partnership and relationship with programs here. We've been mutually supportive over the years, and that support is extending along our immediate waterfront here in Sausalito. The Community Boating Center just had its soft opening, is having a grand opening in a month or so, and that's just right up the road, right up the coast. And we're trying to develop along the waterfront with help from Jim Gabbard and others in the Waterfront Foundation to make more connections right here in Sausalito. We have a remarkable community, as I think we all know, and the more we can work together and spread the word about what goes on here, how it helps the community, how it helps young people, how it helps the environment, we're all better off for it. So I also want to do a shout out to the Army Corps of Engineers. Gil is here representing the U.S. Army. We have a lot to thank Gil, and also, as many of you know, Chris Gallagher was instrumental in making sure that we had a place to dock. That's really helpful, as anyone who's paying dockage for your own boat knows. Ours is rather big. Yes, Lucinda. Lucinda, I would never say no. And we're going to have a few times for questions. We don't want to extend this beyond what you would like, and we don't want to interrupt your dinner too much.
I just want to share with you, I am not a sailor. I had a powerboat when I lived in the Virgin Islands, so, I want to get there. But I so appreciate what Coliseum does, and the first time I really donated to Coliseum was during the pandemic. I asked a friend of mine who's Guatemalan, I said, what's your daughter Leslie doing this summer? It was summer break, and she said, oh, she's sitting home alone because the parents worked. And I said, do you think that she would want to be a part of the summer camp at Call of the Sea? And she said, anything. And so it was a 3-week camp, and I got the most incredible thank you letter. She said, never in my wildest dreams, when I came to Sausalito and looked out at this bay, that I could be a part of that. It never occurred to her to go out on the water. And she wrote about all the things that she learned. And she said, now when I come to Sausalito or when I look out at the bay, I think today would be a good day to sail. I mean, my God. And it was only $1,500. When I think of that thank you letter, it brings me so much joy. And I think about, what that gave her. And so I would ask you to think about somebody who may benefit from something like this, and think about, that you could donate. And I just love what this organization does. And it's not because, Stephen is a part of it. It really sometimes brings tears to my eyes thinking about the difference it makes in these kids' lives, because they never would have gotten a chance to do this. So, think about that. We are all so lucky, think about what you could do for someone else during this time. You know what I mean? So thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda. I want to open it up up for questions, and as we do, if you think about the question you want to ask, there is a clipboard going around for you to share your name and contact info. We would love to speak with you more, but please feel free to come on up, ask a question. I also just want to point out that there are some fabulous sponsors for the Tall Ship Celebration, and we are still seeking more sponsors. We have sponsors like Golden Gate Market and the Sausalito Sustainable Waterfront Association, Modern Sailing, the Woodside Fund for Education. But that is something that is sponsorable. Also this year, this summer, you can sponsor a sale. You could sponsor the Independence Day sale, or the Earth Day sale, or the Father's Day sale, or something like that. But opening it up for questions. Okay, Debbie.
Talk to Mike.
You don't have to.
We had a couple questions from our table. Could you talk a little bit about what Title I schools and students are all about, to explain that to people?
Yeah, Title I schools have a percentage of students, I think it's 70%, who qualify for free or reduced price meals based on their community. And so they have been deemed appropriate for that. So it's really low income. Most of it's just the spaces that you really want to serve all throughout the Bay.
We had another question. This is our table questions. You talked about one of the things that would be helpful to raise funds for to get the students here. It's always an issue, transportation. And like just ballpark figure, is there one student coming one time, or is it coming for a session? $250, $500, $1,000 to sponsor? Like, what would that look like? That's put you on the spot a little bit.
The way that we describe it is that we're sponsoring buses of students, and we say, 10% of the cost of a student participating is for the bus. So to sponsor one student is $100. To sponsor, so it's $85 goes to the sale, $5 goes to the administration, and $10 goes toward that transportation support.
That's for a one-time?
For a 3-hour sale, but you're doing that in bulk. Yeah.
I don't know if you have enough data yet, but do you have any sense of the annual maintenance costs for Seaward and Matthew Turner?
I don't know that I have any data for that. I think the key, it's a lot.
It's a lot for my book.
What we usually say is that Matthew Turner is an extraordinary vessel, and so there's nothing about it that's ordinary, so every expense is extraordinary. Stephen, maybe you have a better number than I do.
Well, we have been watching numbers over the years. Just to give you an example, we have to haul out Matthew Turner every 2 years. And that's a complete haul out. And we downrig and we uprig and so on. And I think that cost, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, when you add it all up, is probably a couple $100,000 every 2 years, just for Matthew Turner. And Seaward is far less, but still expensive. And one of the challenges, and this is something that Alan has been advocating for years, back before COVID, Seaward would go down to Mexico. And mostly adults, but also young people, various legs. It was an effort to keep us afloat. So even though we might have to haul out every 2 years, we managed to get down to Mexico and back safely, and it generated some revenues. And we're hopeful to be able to resume that in the near future. In the meantime, we're doing some extra things this last winter. We did an experiment with a winter camp for kids. It was highly successful. And we're going to be doing more and more of that. There are voyages that were mentioned, and I just to give you an example, last year we decided, we better try this. We took Matthew Turner up to Drake's, spent overnight up there, had a wonderful day there, then came back around the Farallones and back. I think it was a 2-night trip, and everything worked beautiful. It was kind of an experiment, but it also was, if I can use this term, profitable. It helped cover the costs. And so when we say participate in any way you can, just volunteering, spreading the word, we're happy with that. If you come out sailing, just recognize that the dollars that go into the program help support the charitable activities that we do on the other side. So anyway, I hope we answered your question. Okay, yes.
So I don't understand. So when you say yes, sponsors like the market and stuff like that,
Yes.
are they giving some every year? What is the question as you see fit?
Okay, we have, for example, the question is about sponsorship. So for the upcoming spring event, it's a dollar contribution, and what the sponsors do, they are listed as sponsors, and they're under no further obligation, but they're helping to sponsor the event. So we generate, the event is free to the public, so it's not an event that we charge for. It's like an opening season, come out and see what we do. So the sponsorships help underwrite the cost of that and help get us on to a good start. Yes.
From a business fund. And so what is that? Just they know, like, a company.
We have sponsors that start at $1,000. At $2,500, you start to get some benefits. Besides the branding, we have the availability of tickets on the Matthew Turner on a different day. And you can also have, you could sponsor 3 Matthew Turner sales, but they start at $2,500 and they go up to $100,000 if you want to sponsor the entire season, which would be pretty exciting, right? Yeah. You also get, paella and things like that for anything over $5,000. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
But it's new this year.
Okay.
Any more questions? Last question?
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. Please make sure to share your information. We'd love to talk with you more. Thank you.